Good evening. This is the Dolores County Broadcasting Network. And this Monday, I do have an update from Jets camp. Now, for you people out there in TV land, what do you think would be the dumbest thing that a football team could do approaching this next season, which basically is going to start in July? So, to just eliminate the suspense, the Jets, after the draft, in the middle of free agency, as they are right now, trying to sign up new players, they fired their general manager. Mr. Johnson, who is an heir to the Johnson & Johnson Corporation, in all of his ridiculous wisdom, decided that it was a good idea to fire his general manager. And they're looking for a new general manager. But remember, at the end of the regular season, 6 general managers were fired, have already been replaced. So who possibly could be left? What pickings could possibly be left of a qualified person to manage the Jets organization? And then people wonder why they stink. And I'm being kind by saying they stink. So, with that, it's obvious that we're just going to have another lousy season with a new coach, no current general manager, and an owner or owner's brother who knows absolutely nothing about football or making any significant business decision. So, the DCTV 4-HTV news program for May 20th, and it's hard to believe it's May 20th with the temperature being 40 degrees outside, and it was just snowing here just a little while ago. Camera person is Cowboy Harrison. Video engineer, sound engineer, producer is Edward. Teleprompter and prompter is Dan. News anchor is Little Pink Lion Faulkner. Meteorologist is Hannah I Love My iPhone Faulkner. And this is news director Dan. And now the news.
Welcome to the DCTV 4H Kids Eating News Show. Help us keep our new show on the air by becoming a sponsor. You can buy a sponsorship by calling 970-677-419. That's 970-677-419. Now for the news. Hi, I am Daniel, and our first story is from the Durango Herald. More precipitation expected this week for southwest Colorado. Southwest Colorado is in another rainy week at lower elevations and late May snow at higher elevations, and the pattern of higher than normal precipitation is expected to extend through the summer. Van Moyer, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service in Grand Junction, said lower elevations of southwest Colorado along the U.S. Highway 160 corridor can expect alternating periods of heavy rain, light rain, and breaks in the rain from Sunday night through Thursday. In the high country above 9,000 feet, the pattern will repeat, but with snow instead of rain. He said a winter weather advisory is in effect from 6 p.m. Sunday to 6 p.m. Monday for the San Juan Mountains, including the towns of Silverton, Telluride, Ouray, and Lake City. Moyer added the winter weather advisory is likely to extend by the Weather Service later into the week. We are expecting snow throughout the high country this week, he said. The winter weather advisory means travelers can expect periods of snow accumulations from 5 to 10 inches and wind gusts above 40 miles per hour, principally above 9,000 feet. Periods of snow are expected to cause travel difficulties in people on Wolf Creek, Molasse, Coe Bank, Red Mountain, and Lizard Head passes should expect periods of limited visibility and snow-covered roads, Moyer said. Sunday and Monday night temperatures in Silverton are expected to dip 24 and 20 degrees respectively. In Telluride, Sunday and Monday night temperatures are expected to sink 27 and 24 degrees. Moyer said lows will be in the 20s and above 9,000 feet in the San Juan Mountains. In more populated river valleys at lower elevations, Pagosa Springs, Durango, Mancos, and Dolores can all expect to see a few snowflakes mixed with rain, especially at night, Moyer said. Low temperatures could hit freezing in Pagosa Springs, Mancos, and Dolores on Monday night, but freezing nighttime temperatures are not expected in Durango and Cortez. Residents living near lower elevation river valleys can expect periods of heavy rain broken by periods of lighter rain and breaks in the rain from Sunday night through Thursday. Moyer said at any lower elevation nighttime snowfall should not lead to accumulations, he added. Moyer said a weak El Nino system remains in place, favoring above normal precipitation throughout the Four Corners. We do still have a weak El Nino pattern in place, and that certainly can have an impact on the weather patterns in southern Colorado, he said. He added the National Climate Data Center predicts wetter than normal weather patterns through summer for southern Colorado. Odds favor a wetter than normal June the whole summer as well, Moyer said. The story is from the Journal. In the aftermath of avalanches, digging out will take time. While spring is in full swing in most of southwest Colorado, impacts of heavy snowfall and unprecedented avalanche activity this winter are expected to be felt for months. It's more than just lingering issues, said Pete Maisel, a former Silverton town trustee. It's part of our life now. The snowpack was epic. When southwest Colorado snowpack peaked April 5th, it became the third biggest snow year since 1986, falling just behind 1993 and 2005. With heavy snowfall and higher avalanche activity this winter, officials in Silverton are concerned that summer tourism that draws ATV riders, hikers, and mountain bikers might be delayed, courtesy of Rusty Melcher. And with the heavy snow, an untold number of avalanches came down across Colorado. In the southwest corner alone, Colorado Avalanche Information Center data show nearly 230 slides were recorded since November 1st, and that's just avalanches reported to the center. Now comes the aftermath and the cleanup of all that snowfall and avalanche activity. Willie Tukey, San Juan County Administrator, said there's still a lot of snow in the high country. As of Wednesday, snowpack in southwest Colorado was at nearly 225 of normal historic averages. Every day, Tukey said road crews are staging a heroic effort to clear the more than 120 miles of county roads, most of them in remote mountainous terrain around Silverton. Willie Tukey, San Juan County Administrator, said crews are hard at work cleaning up after a winter filled with avalanches, courtesy of Willie Tukey. Tukey said that last year, when the region was in critical throughout Cinnamon Pass, a high mountain four-wheel drive road that connects Silverton to Lake City was open. This year, however, crews haven't even punched through the Animas Forks, a popular ghost town closer to Silverton. If you have an avalanche bring down a lot of trees and debris, it's a whole lot more difficult than just plowing snow, he said. One avalanche that covered County Road 2, the road to Eureka, buried the road in up to 40 feet of snow. Farther past Eureka, toward Animas Forks, it was discovered this week that another avalanche dumped up to 120 feet of snow on the road. As a result, it's likely Animas Forks won't be accessible until July. The county enlisted the help of resident Rusty Melcher to take drone footage to get a bird's eye view of the avalanches. People have gotten used to early dates for getting the backcountry open, Tukey said. It will be a little longer this year, and that can impact the town's economy. San Juan County officials said a recently discovered avalanche buried the road to Animas Forks in up to 120 feet of snow. It's likely the route won't open until July, officials said, courtesy of Rusty Melcher. Indeed, Deanne Gallegos, director of the Silverton Area Chamber of Commerce, agreed that the closed four-wheel drive roads might delay ATV riders and other recreationists in getting up to the small mountain town north of Durango. The roads are our biggest question right now, she said, and we don't know how to answer that. Watching what comes down, Mark Lambert with the U.S. Forest Service said there was likely to be a good deal of damage to trails in the San Juans. The Forest Service hires crews to be on the ready to repair routes, knowing the winter months bring down trees, erosion, and other debris. But it might be hard to access the areas for a few weeks and open popular hiking trails and camping areas. It's one of those things we deal with every winter, but this year it's more daunting, Lambert said. We may have some real challenges out there. Some of those piles may be very high and very thick, and it may take time to clear. A 9 by 6 foot boulder came down an avalanche path this winter and now rests along the Boulder Gulch Trail. Mark Esper, Silverton Standard, and the miner Lisa Swantz, spokeswoman for the Colorado Department of Transportation, said road crews are patrolling Coal Bank, Mullis, and Red Mountain passes for down trees and rockfall on U.S. Highway 550. Erosion too poses a challenge for keeping the highway safe. We're continuing to watch what comes down with all that snowmelt, he said. Ethan Green, director of CAIC, said as the snow melts, local and state officials are able to get a better idea of the damage in the backcountry. Outside Silverton, for instance, a cabin was obliterated by an avalanche in March. More recently, it was discovered an equipment shed at the Eureka Lodge north of Silverton was knocked down by a slide. Green said that although it's mid-May, the risk for avalanches is not over. We are still forecasting for avalanches and having people caught in avalanches, he said. From summer to early fall, the CAIC evaluates the past avalanche season, tweaking out a forecast for public safety. All told, 16 people reportedly were buried in avalanches in the backcountry and 8 people died across the state. The CAIC sends out avalanche risk reports every day since 1992. No one has died in the avalanche while driving a Colorado road, even as the state's population has increased and more people use and travel in the backcountry. After a partnership started between CDOT and CAIC, I'm not saying wholesale changes, he said, but it helps us make better decisions in the future. This story is from the Journal. Conditions ideal for prescribed burns in southwest Colorado. Taking advantage of nature's bounty, the San Juan National Forest anticipates ramping up efforts to mitigate wildfire danger by decreasing prescribed burns through fall. As San Juan National Forest plans to burn at least 15,000 acres this season, and prescribed burns could reach 22,000 acres this year given the proper conditions. So far, conditions look ideal, said Brad Pietraszka, fuels programs manager for the San Juan National Forest. About 6,000 acres in the Sow's Creek area were set aside for prescribed burns. Last year, when dry and dangerous conditions were ideal for out-of-control wildfires such as Plateau, Burrow, and for 16 fires. If we get to where we want to be with prescribed burns, Piotrowska said, we'll be prepared for a dry year like 2018. We can bring in people and be effective. If we have a fire, we actually have a chance of doing something about the fire. The idea behind the prescribed burns, Piotrowska said, is to create pockets of the forest that would burn more slowly and give firefighters the chance to control a wildfire should one break out. Prescribed fire also mitigate the threat of a crown fire in which flames leap from one tree top to another. The 2019 prescribed burn season will start later than normal. With all the rain and the snowpack, Piotrowska said crews didn't start their first burn until April 28th, about a week later than normal. The prescribed burn season is usually divided into two sections from mid-April to early June, and from late August to November. June and July are usually too dry for prescribed burns, but that might change this year. This year could allow burning in June. It's not out of the question, Piotrowska said. Still, Piotrowska cautioned that forest officials monitor conditions daily to determine the safety of prescribed burns, and burns will be canceled or downsized if conditions turn drier. Each burn is studied rigorously to ensure a safe, effective prescribed burn, he said. If you're unable to view the PDF document above, click here to view it in a new tab. Currently, as San Juan National Forest officials anticipate burning 7,000 acres in the Dolores Ranger District in the western portion of the forest, 6,000 acres in the Columbine Ranger District, the central portion of the forest, 3,000 acres in the Pagosa Ranger District in the eastern portion of the forest. As of Thursday, only 1,784 acres have been burned in the San Juan National Forest, and 750 acres have been burned on Bureau of Land Management land in southwest Colorado, Piotrowska said. So far this year, the wildfire season has been below average throughout the nation, which provides more firefighting resources to devote to prescribed burns, Piotrowska said. Smoke from prescribed burns also is likely to be visible from towns across southwest Colorado, but Piotrowska and said officials take precautions to ensure the smoke does not reach unhealthy and healthful levels in nearby populated areas. Generally, the largest prescribed burns are conducted in fall, but current conditions are also ideal, Piotrowska said. Some larger prescribed burns could go off this spring. This story is from the Denver Post. Mounting tensions with Iran, China leave oil prices in flux. A rare mix of geopolitical tensions in the Middle East and China has tugged oil prices in opposite directions and creating uncertainty over where they might land. Deteriorating trade talks between the United States and China, the world's two largest economies, are posing a serious threat to global economic growth, and whenever that growth sputters, demand for oil and gasoline typically craters. But escalating tensions in the Middle East and elsewhere could threaten oil supply, which could push the price of oil and gasoline higher. In the past week, the United Arab Emirates has alleged 4 oil tankers of its east coast were targeted in sabotage attacks. At the same time, Saudi Arabia has accused Iran of being behind a drone attack that shut down a key oil pipeline in the kingdom. Meanwhile, the U.S. has dispatched warships and bombers to the regions to counter an alleged threat from Iran, whose economy is reeling from President Donald Trump's decision last year to withdraw the U.S. from the 2015 nuclear accord and impose wide-reaching sanctions. Tensions are high, and I think the chance of further escalation is probably pretty good as well, said Ryan Fitzmaurice, energy strategist of Rabobank. If any of these issues flare up, prices could increase sharply. If you have a major attack on a Saudi production facility or Saudi tanker, we could see prices increase quite dramatically overnight. There already were concerns about constraints on oil supply last month. Trump decided to impose sanctions on nations that were importing oil from Iran, taking about 1 billion barrels of oil off the market by some estimates. Production in Venezuela, once one of the world's largest oil producers, has collapsed to one-third of its historic output amid a political crisis there. There are so many risks to supply, it's hard to list them, said Amy Myers Jaffe, Senior Fellow of the Council of Foreign Relations. I think the market undervaluing how big the risks are. Indeed, some observers of the oil industry are also downplaying the supply risk. While they are concerned the major oil production facilities in Saudi Arabia could be targeted of further attacks, the country has been strengthening its oil infrastructure, making those targets very hard to hit, said Kevin Buck, managing director at Clearview Energy Partners. There are so many missing barrels right now that a real destructive act would mean a tremendous upward price pressure on crude, and yet those real destructive acts are also difficult too. Brooks said they're big military operations and there's a lot of countermeasures in place to prevent them. While Middle East tensions could push oil and gasoline prices higher, the trade war with China could pull prices back down. Last week, the Trump administration more than doubled tariffs on $200 billion in Chinese imports and spelled out plans to target the $300 billion worth that are already facing 25% taxes in the labeled telecom equipment giant Huawei, a security risk, and imposed export curbs on U.S. technology sales to the company. China retaliated by raising tariffs on $60 billion in the U.S. imports. There have been signs that economic growth in China is slowing, which could mean less demand for oil from one of the world's major consumers. Last year, car sales in China fell 10%, and in March, oil demand declined for the first time since 2014, said Jim Burkhard, Vice President for Oil Markets at IHMS Market. The Chinese economy has been incredibly resilient, Burkhard said. Nonetheless, I know there are a few data points that raise some serious questions about the course of economic growth in China, and the U.S. trade dispute only adds to that concern. That's what could drive prices lower. As for the impact on gasoline prices, the trajectory is hard to predict. When the driving season kicks in high gear for the summer, prices typically move with the temperatures. They rise, but given the conflicts around the globe, they could soar to unusual heights to the point where drivers think twice before hitting the road, or they could fall to levels that hurt producers in the U.S. and abroad, as well as the communities that rely on those industries for jobs. It's impossible to predict with precision if oil prices are going to break one way or another. But given what's at stake, violent shifts could occur, Burkhard said. It's a very precarious balance because you're not talking about things that are going to remain stable, especially on the supply side. U.S. gasoline prices had been flowing a typical trajectory this year, hitting a 5-month high in late March, while U.S. and Chinese negotiators were speaking in Beijing. U.S. yet optimism began to fade by early this month when Trump threatened to hike tariffs on China, sending global stock markets tumbling and pushing U.S. gasoline prices lower. They have subsequently increased modestly as tensions in the Middle East have mounted. The U.S. Department this week reported that demand for gasoline dropped to levels more typical of fall and winter when Americans are huddled inside rather than packing for vacations. The national average for a gallon of gasoline was $2.86 Friday, down 2 cents in a week as portions of the country faced terrible weather, but AAA said prices will likely rebound heading into summer. Lower oil and gasoline prices could be viewed as a boon to American consumers who want to pay less for gasoline and are more likely to spend cash elsewhere if they're not burning it all at the pump. But it also could hurt the economies of major oil-producing countries such as Russia and Saudi Arabia, as well as oil-producing states in the U.S. such as Texas, North Dakota, New Mexico, and Oklahoma. Lower oil prices would mean less revenue for the companies extracting oil in these states, which could lead to fewer jobs or lower wages in those communities. The oil business has been a growth business for the U.S. economy, Burkhart said. The impact for lower prices on the U.S. economy is not as clear a benefit as it was, say, 10 years ago. Now for Dumb Laws with Hannah.
Our dumb law segment are actual laws still in the books in many states, cities, and municipalities. This means that these laws are still technically legal. Dumb laws in California. California prison workers will no longer be allowed to have sex with inmates. Film producers must have permission from a pediatrician before filming a child under the age of 1 month. It is unlawful to let a dog pursue a bear or a bobcat at any time. In San Jose and Sunny Valley, it is illegal for grocery stores to provide plastic bags. You may only throw a frisbee at the beach in Los Angeles County with a lifeguard's permission. Bathhouses are against the law. Sunshine is guaranteed to the masses. It is a misdemeanor to shoot at any kind of game from a moving vehicle unless the target is a whale. Women may not drive in a housecoat. No vehicle without a driver may exceed 60 miles per hour. Now for the weather report. Our current weather data comes from the DCTV weather station located in the beautiful downtown Dove Creek. Current temperature is 44 degrees. The high for today was 44 degrees. The low was 34 degrees. The barometer is at 29.65 inches and falling humidity is at 57%. Wind is between 1 and 5 miles per hour from the southwest. Gusts have been up to 20 miles per hour. There was 0.06 of an inch of moisture today in the DTC weather station. Moisture for the month is 1.15 of an inch. Moisture accumulation for the year is 7 inches and 11 hundredths. Now for the big map, courtesy of National Weather Service. The western side of the country is experiencing rain, snow, and thunderstorms with a possible chance of heavy snow in Colorado. There's Colorado. Rain and thunderstorms plague the Great Plains with severe thunderstorms and flash flooding from Texas to Nebraska. The East Coast is experiencing rain and thunderstorms with severe storms in the New Hampshire area. East Coast. Here is our exclusive DCTV 5-day forecast. Rain, thunderstorms. Tuesday, rain showers, high 52, low 35. So Wednesday, rain showers, high 51, low 35. Thursday, rain showers, high 51, low 34. Friday, partly sunny, high 61, low 38. Saturday, mostly sunny, high 66, low 41. Now for the snow tower report, which is the amount of snowpack in the states across the mountains. in the state across the mountains. Remember that this is a percentage of the average for this time of year. Here in the Southwest, we only have 88% of normal. Now for the climate change report. CO2, carbon dioxide, is considered a greenhouse gas and is one of the principal causes of climate change. CO2 traps heat in the atmosphere, which causes climate instability. This results in significant variations worldwide of moisture and hot and cold temperatures, but the general climate trend of the planet is slowly warming. Therefore, it is important that we report the CO2 weekly change. The following are the CO2 numbers in parts per million. Last week, 415.39. 2 weeks ago, 414.37. Last year, 411.84. 10 years ago, 390.10. 50 years ago, 327.34. Thank you, Dr. Peter Tanz, the National Oceanographic Atmospheric Administration, and Michael McGee of the CO2.earth network for providing this information. Remember, you can help keep our kids' new show on air by buying a sponsorship. To become a sponsor, use code 970-677-4119. That's 970-677-4119. Thank you. Now back to our news director.
And that is the end of today's DCTV 4-H Evening News Show. This is your news director, Dan, saying good night and thank you for watching. And please have pity on the New York Jets.